and impact speakers. And now we're just going to be sharing a little bit about our organization, starting off with Project Aqauscope. So just a bit about us. So Aquascope, we basically have three main objectives to our project. The first being environmental sustainability. We want to empower people to think critically about the environment. Secondly, STEM education, our emphasis on STEM education. We're devoted to increasing accessibility and quality to STEM education everywhere. And lastly, youth empowerment. As some of our youth entrepreneurs who spoke yesterday and Model UN Impact have kind of emphasized in their presentations that youth are the future, and the best way to create impact is to work with youth in communities everywhere and empower them to take action. So a little bit about our project history. Project Aqauscope was born in the Envision Conservatory for the Humanities, and it was initially a project called Foldscope. And Foldscope's objective was to basically extend what Foldscope instruments had sought out to do, which was to solve an accessibility problem in science. Foldscope's Instruments is an organization that has created Foldscopes, which are $1 accessible microscopes that are made out of primarily paper and plastic and can magnify up to 140 times. So they're a low-cost alternative to the traditional microscope. So Foldscope, our project, began in 2016 by simply sending some copies of biology labs that were taught in standard biology courses at our high school to places so that they could be performed without a microscope but a Foldscope. And some of these labs included DNA extraction, comparing plant and animal cells, and there were a couple more.
So this is one of our earliest iterations of promotional material. As you can see, we promote the Foldscope, the $1 origami microscope, which Aquascope or Foldscope used heavily. And then here we have some photos of us or the Foldscope team traveling around. This is Panama, talking to students and working with students with the Foldscopes. But as we mentioned, a lot of our efforts were mostly STEM related, but as our project has grown and evolved with different leaders and participants, we've kind of changed from this STEM only focus to the three pillars that Ella described earlier.
So a little bit more about our project history. So under the objectives that Richard just kind of outlined and I outlined a couple slides ago, our project had the opportunity to do a couple of things that really impacted our evolution as a project. So first, we were able to work with schools globally, most notably in Panama at our high school sister school, Escuela Homero Ayala. We were able to donate some lab supplies, Foldscopes, and a lab series to these schools in Panama. And we were actually able to travel down there and perform the labs with the kids. So prior to visiting Panama, of course, we had to test the labs with our local middle school. And we were also able to get a local grant for this work. So let's talk a little bit about our evolution. So a couple of things were key to our evolution. One, the project Foldscope is being passed down from old graduating leaders to new ones, and caused us to ask a couple of important questions before we proceeded. This is kind of what Omaima mentioned, the evaluation part of the project. We asked ourselves, are we really making a difference at the level that we want to be making a difference? So from this, asking ourselves this question and our involvement in Panama, we learned an important lesson. So instead of focusing on what we're familiar with and what we can give the students we were hoping to impact, focusing on that, we needed to really ask them and learn from them about what they actually need and will benefit from, instead of imposing what we can give them. That might not be the most engaging and helpful thing for them. So the objective and name of our project changed on that trip to Panama. And this is because of a couple things that happened there. One, when we were performing the standard biology labs with the kids, they were really interested in the foldscopes. They were amazed, like most people are, that you can see something with 140 times magnification through basically a piece of paper. But as we went really into the lab part of the day, when we were talking about the standard biology labs and performing them, the kids weren't really interested in the actual biology. They were interested in the foldscope, but maybe not the biology. So we kind of noticed that the interest wasn't there, and that maybe we should shift to something that's more engaging and practical for the kids so they benefit more from it. Secondly, when we were there, the science teacher at the school pulled us all aside to show us a project that the school had actually started themselves. So prime example of a grassroots initiative. They started a garden to produce fresh produce for the children at the school, which was super practical and good for that community, because a lot of the kids suffered with issues of food scarcity. So these two things kind of helped us to change the name and objective of our project.
Yeah, so I'll elaborate a bit more on this evolution portion because it really has shaped Project Aquascope as it is today. So like Ella said, the previous curriculum that the Foldscope team made, other than the fact that they all utilize Foldscopes in some way, were mainly just biology labs that our previous leaders had adapted from their own biology curriculum, such as DNA extraction, plant and animal cells, which a lot of people are familiar with from their high schools. And of course, such labs are really important, and they do teach a lot of core biology concepts, yet much of the content that we taught in our labs was mainly memorization, and it isn't put to use in a real-world practical application or context. And we realized that this is especially important to our target students because we wanted to get them interested in STEM in the first place, and also to help them realize the power that STEM education gives them to create change. So they would need a context for that. For example, to these students that we were working with in Panama, they would benefit much more from learning environmental or agricultural science, which they can then apply their newfound knowledge to their, for example, their garden, to grow more and better produce, instead of learning more abstract biology terms and vocabulary that they might not find as interesting or useful. And so we reformed our methodology in making an impact, and we realized that creating standard biology labs is good, might be good for a different target audience, but we realized that we really do have to pay more attention to the actual needs of the students we were trying to help. And so now, why did we change from a project that was focused on STEM to one that specifically focused more on environmental science? So now Ella will elaborate on that.
Yeah, so we reevaluated and shifted the focus of our project. And this was seen mostly in our shift of curriculum. In this new curriculum that we were writing and creating, we wanted it to embody basically 3 traits. So 1, have it be very practical to the students. 2, have it be beneficial to the students. And 3, have it be engaging to the students. So how we sought out to make sure these traits were embodied in our new curriculum was we began to research the overlap of gardens and agriculture with what we had been doing before, which was biology. In this, right off the bat, we found something called aquaponics. And if you're not familiar with aquaponics, I'll give you a short little summary right now. It's a system of aquaculture in which the waste produced by the fish in the system it supplies the nutrients for the plants to grow with little to no soil. And in turn, the plants actually purify the water. So you can see some of the diagrams we included here. This is basically how it works. And in this, we wanted to focus, we were inspired by the sustainable nature of aquaponics. And we thought, wow, that's brilliant. Who came up with that? We should have more sustainable systems like this. So we sought out to make a lab series and an entire curriculum around sustainable systems and trying to provoke the type of thought that that leads to more sustainable systems like aquaponics being created.
So we'll be touching back on aquaponics later on in our presentation, but first we wanted to give you all an overview of our 3 pillars more in depth. So as we said before, like Foldscope was mainly one pillar, which was STEM education, and that one pillar we have never strayed from our initial mission to expand and give more opportunities to students who don't have access to STEM education. And so the reason why we focus on STEM education is for 2 reasons. Now, obviously, in the Sustainable Development Goals, quality education itself is one of the goals. And of course, like education in general is really important, but Aquascope decided to focus on STEM education for 2 reasons. The first one is that more people are deprived of high quality STEM education because the lab materials are usually really expensive. It's hard to get qualified and trained teachers, as well as get really engaging hands-on curriculum, because STEM is mainly learned through hands-on experience. So that's the first reason. So Project Aqauscope, we really wanted to use our opportunities and all the things that we've learned from our teachers in our schools to help more students who don't have the same opportunities as us. So that's why we focus on STEM education. The second reason is because many of today's modern problems, the greatest problems in the world today, lie in the fields of STEM, right? Like for scientists, they're constantly creating innovations and technologies that are solving these problems. So we really want these students to be able to have this knowledge and have the knowledge that they have, they can actually use to make a difference in the world.
And like we said, a lot of the students that we worked with, they enjoyed the Foldscopes, but they didn't really, the STEM was not such a very important part for them. So we wanted to look at how we can apply the STEM to something that can be practical and students can use in their own communities. So this is where the environmental sustainability pillar came about. We want to educate students about these STEM and biological concepts, but we also want them to apply them in a practical way so they can solve the environmental issues that within their communities. So this is why we created labs that help students not only teach them about STEM, but also help them become problem solvers and critical thinkers. This allows them to look at their environment and look at the community they live in and think critically about what changes need to be made or what changes could be made in order to make the community and the environment better for everyone. And because these youth will be the leaders of the future, we want to target the youth now so they can create an environment that they want to live in the future. Because changes such as global warming, they are irreversible. So we want students to look at these issues and make changes now because we want them to live in a sustainable and we want them to have a bright future.
So Richard kind of touched on this a little bit, but our third pillar is youth empowerment. And this came from the realization that the best way to make a large impact is not from traveling individually to each school everywhere as much as possible, but to empower youth to start their own projects or their own initiatives. Much of the work that Model UN Impact is doing with their SDG challenge and everything, but to take action in your own community on these issues. So this is called a grassroots initiative, which is where our youth impact focused around that concept of a grassroots initiative. There's a couple ways in which our program is doing this. Project Aqauscope is doing this. First is we have created an Aquascope ambassadors program. We actually have a couple ambassadors attending today. But basically this is a program which encourages youth to either start their own project or initiative in their community, or we collaborate with existing projects to elevate both of our organizations and to take greater amount of action on the SDGs. So we'll touch on more info on how you can become an Aquascope ambassador and apply our 3 pillars or basically any SDG to your community. But yes.
So this is actually our first lab series that we developed after we reevaluated our entire project. So we're going to be touching back on aquaponics. So our discovery of aquaponics gave rise to our first lab series, the Sustainable System series. And so since an aquaponics system was an innovation that synthesized many different cycles, such as the nitrogen cycle, oxygen cycle, and more, we basically decided to work backwards, which was to teach students about the Earth's major cycles and then prompt them to use this newfound knowledge and invent a system by themselves that is self-sustainable. So it is ultimately the process of how students use their creativity to come up with their sustainable system, whether that be similar to aquaponics or not, that is important. And this type of critical thinking not only just alters the mindsets of students by allowing them to realize the impact of their actions, not only on the environment, but in society as well, in that they can be change makers. And in our labs, we also connect each of Earth's cycles to human impact to foster change in the behavior and perspective of students towards the environment. So these labs not only fit within our STEM education pillar, but also environmental awareness and youth empowerment. So this is really the reason why we chose these 3 pillars as the foundation of our project, because they are all really interconnected with each other.
Yeah, so these are just some screen shares of pieces of our infographics that we created for our curriculum. We just really wanted to teach Earth cycles as like the fundamental units on how you can build a sustainable system. So I'll just leave this up here a little bit so you guys can check out the infographic.
So as we touched on earlier, we have a program called Aquascope Ambassadors, because we'll touch on this a little bit more later, but essentially you can apply to become an Aquascope ambassador, and essentially you can either bring the curriculum to your school or help us fundraise or do whatever you think will be best for your community, because we are just a few people and we're not familiar with your community, but a member of that community is. And if you choose to work with us, you will be able to apply the curriculum or our mission in any way you see fit, and that will have a greater impact than us just imposing our curriculum on your community.
Yeah, so again, we'll touch on this a little bit later at the very end of our program, but another opportunity coming up for Project Aqauscope is we're going to be doing a Changemaker Enrichment Summer Camp. In a similar sort of format where we'll be hearing from speakers engaged in different interesting themes, or at least that we think are really interesting. But we'll touch more on this later. Next, we're gonna have GIYLS share a little bit about themselves. So take it away.
Yeah, hey guys. Just starting off, my name is Vevias Jampano Boyana. You can call me VJ, and I'm from Pennsylvania. The rest of the team can introduce.
Yeah, so my name is Shraddha Subhash. I'm from Frisco, Texas. Ruben?
Yeah, I'm Ruben from Monrovia, Liberia. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I think we can go to the next slide. So first off, I kind of just wanted to reiterate our mission and bring awareness to what we advocate for. So GIYLS is a community that promotes social change by bringing together adults and young adults from low to middle income countries. So we essentially focus mainly on the youth and entrepreneurship, education, like those topics. And the purpose of GIYLS is to promote and create ideas for social and entrepreneurial change, like I said, of any kind, and bringing together especially disadvantaged students with the lack of opportunity and from across the world, which we feel like that's a little bit more unique because it's more global. And our goal is to give them a platform for collaboration in our community. So next up, we'd like to talk about our opportunities and some of the stuff that we've done before, which kind of promotes our mission in various communities across the world.
Yeah, so right now our organization is at the stage of kind of expanding and getting our mission to like raise awareness and be out there. So what we decided to do was create these regional chapters, and we just started this, so we don't have too many yet. Um, and if you guys want to apply, we have it all up on our website. But we have a Liberia chapter, Nigeria chapter, and 2 chapters in the US. And what we're trying to do is go global and I guess spread our mission so that we can help more and more people and really like I guess put an impact on more people, um, as well as like I guess have multiple events going on at the same time, um, again for the sole reason of impacting more people. So yeah.
Okay, so next I'd like to talk about our past event, which is the Virtual Diversity Concert, and it was one of our like most successful events along with our summit. So something I'd like to talk about the process of making it and stuff like that. So for in the beginning, we reached about 1K views, which we didn't expect right off the bat, but it was a pleasant surprise, and a lot of people from across the world joined our live, and we were able to collect over $600 in donation for Save the Children Foundation to help Yemen for the COVID crisis. And something that we plan on having is having this virtual diversity concert as like a yearly thing, as it gained a lot of popularity due to our first live stream on YouTube as well as Facebook. So some challenges, I guess, that we kind of faced while planning this is recruiting or gathering artists. So we had to work around a lot of time zones, and we had to reach out to artists all across the world, and we were able to get about 20 or more artists to perform for our virtual diversity concert. And it took a lot of planning, a lot of editing from VJ's side and one of our other teammate, Manogna's side. And so that was one challenge, was reaching out to artists, but we got to reach out to people all across the world, which was the plus point. And another thing was getting donations. So as we know, like small organizations, it's a little bit hard to do that. So to something to keep in mind if you want to start your own project is creating this trust with the people that want to donate, giving them reminders on social media or reaching out to people individually. That's something that we had to do to gain donations. And something that was kind of funny in a way was that as we kind of neared the event, more people started to donate, which we were very, very excited about. And yeah, so that was something, those were some of the experiences that we had for the virtual diversity concert. And it's something that we look forward to doing more in the future. So I guess something that we can talk about next is our past events. If we just kind of take a road down the history lane, we can have Ruben talk about the Liberia Summit next.
Okay, thank you. So sorry about the noise in my background. So when VJ and I started this project back 2019, the first thing was after I had a conference at VJ and I started to get things going. So what we first thought about is people not in developing countries like Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ghana, and other parts of the world not having the platform, right, to bring their ideas to reality. They might have the idea, but they do not have the resources, they do not have the platform, they do not have the support to bring these ideas to reality. So the first thing that we thought about is to organize a summit that will bring a lot of young people together where they can like talk about, they can share their problems in their community and where we can provide the resources to help them. So we held a very successful event and we had people from other parts of the world coming to Liberia. We had a round table, we talked about a lot of problems. We had international speakers from the US, Singapore, Nigeria, and other parts of the world, where we talk about problems within our community and how we can solve these problems. So exactly after we held this conference, we had a lot of people specifically from Liberia who started their own nonprofit, and we have been supporting them in whatever way we can to help them solve problems in their community. So it was successful. So the first thing, it came up with a lot of challenge, but you know, in managing a nonprofit, it comes with a lot of challenge, like reaching out to a lot of people to have funds to get these things done. Funding was a challenge, but then we figured a way out to have funds to get these things done, to have people together for 4 days, feeding them into all of these things. So we put all of this together specifically to help solve problems in our community. Our world need a lot of ideas. Our world have a lot of problems, and these ideas comes when we all sit together through events and like discuss these problems, how can we solve these problems, the solutions, and we take immediate steps to solving these problems. It's not just about sitting like we do on the Zoom call and saying that I want to do this, I want to do that, but it's about acting on what you want to do. So yeah, I think we can have.
All right. So, as Ruben said, we had our first summit, and now we were thinking of keeping that trend going and talking about our second annual summit. So as Ruben shred that we're talking more about like challenges and any advice we can throw in to really make this as educative as possible. But right now we are planning a second summit in September, and we're going to be featuring a series of speakers from around the globe and participants from all around the globe. And it's going to be very interactive. Something that we started to see was the more interactive, the better, the more engaging, the better, because right, more people are staying in the call then, more people are interested to continue. And therefore, we decided to take a different approach and kind of think of the unique portions of the summit. So I guess it really goes down to 3 different aspects. And one of the aspects is we're going to have experts. And these experts, what we do is when you're registering for the summit, we're going to ask you a list of questions and we're going to assign you to an expert. We're going to give that expert a list of the registrants that they are in charge of, that they suit well with, and then kind of plan out their own little Zoom call where you ask the expert specific questions to your life, to your organization, whatever it may be. And it's kind of like a very personalized approach. And then we're also having unique activities, right? So we were doing more research like quizzes, puzzles, points, levels, really a unique approach on it than rather than only speakers and questions. We are going to have that as well, but also a lot more unique like panels, debates, networking activities. We were exploring options for an application, which is, I guess this kind of ties into the third point of how it's going to be unique. It's not only going to be a video call and talking to these speakers, but also multiple activities. If necessary, we'll even go into other platforms. Like we were thinking of using an application where it'll randomly connect you to a one-on-one talk for like a minute or 2 minutes with a stranger. You can get to meet them. You can network with them. If you guys are kicking it off, you can even get into further contact with them after the summit. And I feel like these unique activities are what is going to really pull our audience. So yeah, stay tuned for that. We are going to open registrations within a week or 2. And yeah, if you're interested, definitely stay tuned.
So again, so we have that coming up. So what happens is we have our newsletter. We ask you that you check our website and like subscribe to our newsletter. So GIYLS, what we've been doing is working on we have a lot of problems right now. We have COVID-19, we have Black Lives Matters. So what happened is we have Nanya who work on our Black Lives Matter article. You can, once you subscribe to our newsletter, or probably you can check our website, we still have that there. So if you want to like stay tuned to this amazing event coming up, I mean, it's going to be amazing, and I cannot wait for that because we have about 20 speakers lined up who's going to be speaking. They're going to like from every part of the world, not from a specific place, from every part of the world. They're going to be sharing their experience, like we just said, experts. So all you need to do for that is subscribe to the newsletter. You're going to receive like the application is open, and we have all of our amazing stuff on the newsletter. Our latest opportunity, the team is working on different kinds of opportunities. Like once you subscribe to the newsletter, you're going to have access to that.
Yeah. So now that we did that, I guess we can move on to like a short question and answer, not only for GIYLS, but also for Project Aqauscope.
Yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
I was also just notified that there were a couple, there might be a couple questions for Model UN Impact people as well. So I guess this can just be a general Q&A, and we'll stop whenever.